Welcome to our countdown of 10 true facts you won't believe. Get ready to have your mind blown as we dive into the strange, surprising, and downright unbelievable realities of our world.
The oldest known your mum joke dates back over 3,500 years to ancient Babylon, proving that humour rooted in playful insults has been a part of human culture for millennia. This joke is recorded on a tablet discovered in Iraq and is part of a collection of riddles and proverbs written in the Akkadian language, the lingua franca of the time. The tablet, dated to around 1500 BCE, is incomplete and heavily eroded, but enough survives to identify it as a humorous quip. The joke, as reconstructed by scholars, is an example of a yo mama insult. While the full context and exact wording have been lost due to the tablet's condition, the structure indicates it was meant to tease or provoke laughter, likely in a social or communal setting. The existence of this joke highlights how humour, especially of the irreverent and teasing variety, transcends time and cultural boundaries. It also provides insight into the everyday lives of ancient Mesopotamians, showing that humour was as integral to their lives as it is to ours today. This discovery is significant not only for its comedic value, but also for what it reveals about the continuity of human expression. The use of familial relationships as a basis for humour underscores a universal trait, the ability to laugh at shared social experiences. Even thousands of years ago, people found amusement in the playful and exaggerated lampooning of common subjects, such as family dynamics. Though the specifics of this Babylonian joke might be obscure, its existence as the oldest recorded your mum joke connects us to our distant ancestors in a surprisingly relatable way. It reminds us that while civilizations rise and fall, certain aspects of human nature, like humour, remain remarkably consistent.
The shortest war in recorded history took place on August 27, 1896, between the British Empire and the Sultanate of Zanzibar. This conflict, known as the Anglo-Zanzibar War, lasted a mere 38 minutes from the start of hostilities to the surrender of Zanzibar. The war arose due to a succession crisis in Zanzibar and the enforcement of British imperial interests in the region. Zanzibar, a small island off the coast of East Africa, was a strategically important territory for trade and British influence in the late 19th century. In 1890, the British and Germans signed the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty, making Zanzibar a British protectorate. When Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, a British ally, died suddenly on August 25, 1896, his successor, Sultan Khalid bin Bargash, took power without British approval. Khalid was perceived as hostile to British interests, particularly regarding their stance against the slave trade, which he supported. The British demanded that Khalid abdicate and proposed a more cooperative leader, Hamud bin Muhammad, as the new sultan. Khalid refused and fortified the palace with his supporters and artillery, setting the stage for conflict. At 9:02 a.m. on August 27, 1896, after the expiry of an ultimatum given to Khalid, British warships in the harbour opened fire on the palace. The bombardment was devastating. Within minutes, most of Khalid's defences were destroyed, and the palace suffered significant damage. Zanzibari forces, numbering around 2,800, were outmatched by the superior firepower of the British fleet. By 9:40 a.m., Khalid's forces had surrendered, marking the end of the war. Zanzibari casualties were reported to be around 500, while the British sustained only one minor injury. Sultan Khalid fled to the German consulate, where he was given asylum. He was later captured and exiled, while the British installed Sultan Hamud bin Muhammad as their preferred ruler. The war solidified British control over Zanzibar and demonstrated the might of British naval power during the height of its empire. It also served as a stark example of the disparity in military technology and organization between colonial powers and smaller states. Sultan Hamud, the new ruler, complied with British demands, including the abolition of the slave trade. The Anglo-Zanzibar War is remembered not only for its brevity, but also as a symbol of the imperial dominance of the British Empire. It highlights the rapid and often overwhelming force used by colonial powers to maintain control over their territories. Despite its short duration, the war is a fascinating historical footnote, illustrating the dynamics of imperialism, local resistance, and geopolitical maneuvering in the late 19th century.
Genghis Khan's conquests in the 13th century were so devastating that they had an unintended environmental impact. They temporarily reduced global carbon dioxide levels. This phenomenon, often called the Genghis Khan effect, occurred because the Mongol invasions caused widespread destruction, depopulation, and the abandonment of agricultural land, leading to large-scale reforestation and the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Genghis Khan, who lived from 1162 to 1227, was the founder of the Mongol Empire. He led a series of campaigns that created the largest contiguous empire in history, stretching from East Asia to Eastern Europe. These conquests resulted in the deaths of an estimated 40 million people, or about 10% of the world's population at the time. Entire cities and civilizations were razed, and agricultural systems were disrupted across vast regions. The mass depopulation caused by the Mongol invasions had significant ecological consequences. With fewer people to tend farmland, vast tracts of cultivated land were abandoned and reverted to natural forests. This reforestation acted as a carbon sink, absorbing large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Researchers estimate that up to 700 million tons of carbon dioxide were removed during this period, an amount roughly equivalent to a year's worth of global gasoline consumption today. Forests play a crucial role in regulating the Earth's carbon cycle. When farmland is abandoned, natural vegetation regenerates and forests absorb carbon dioxide through photosynthesis. The reforested areas that emerged after the Mongol invasions likely covered millions of acres, especially in parts of Asia and Europe. This reduction in atmospheric carbon dioxide likely contributed to a slight cooling of the Earth's climate, though other factors such as volcanic activity and solar variations also influence medieval climate patterns. This phenomenon is one of several instances in history where human activity, or its cessation, has influenced the Earth's carbon balance. Other examples include the depopulation of the Americas following European colonization and the subsequent reforestation, as well as industrial deforestation in more recent centuries. The Genghis Khan effect is unique in that it underscores the unintended environmental impact of large-scale violence and conquest. While the temporary cooling effect caused by the Mongol Empire's conquests may seem like a historical footnote, it highlights the interconnectedness of human activity and the environment. It serves as a stark reminder of how societal collapses, whether due to war, disease, or other factors, can have lasting ecological effects. The Mongol Empire's conquest left a legacy not only in terms of geopolitics and culture, but also in the planet's ecological history.
The first oranges weren't orange, they were green. This surprising fact highlights the diversity of citrus fruits and their adaptations to different climates. Oranges, specifically the original sweet varieties, originated in Southeast Asia, particularly in regions such as modern-day India, Vietnam and southern China. These early oranges were likely green when ripe, a trait that persists in certain climates to this day. The color of an orange's peel depends on its environment, particularly temperature. In tropical and subtropical climates, oranges often remain green when ripe because the constant warmth prevents the breakdown of chlorophyll in the peel. Chlorophyll is the pigment that gives plants their green color. In cooler climates, however, the lower temperatures during ripening trigger the breakdown of chlorophyll, allowing the orange carotenoid pigments to dominate and giving the fruit its characteristic bright orange color. The first oranges, varieties like the pomelo and mandarin, which are the ancestors of modern sweet oranges, developed in consistently warm climates where the green color persisted even at full ripeness. Even today, Green oranges are common in tropical regions such as Thailand, Vietnam, and parts of Central America. These oranges are fully ripe and just as sweet as their orange-coloured counterparts. In fact, in these regions, an orange peel's colour is not considered an indicator of ripeness. Consumers judge ripeness by other factors, such as the fruit's aroma and texture. In contrast, oranges grown in temperate regions, such as the United States and parts of Europe, turn orange due to cooler autumn and winter temperatures. In some cases, producers in tropical areas artificially remove the green coloration by exposing the fruit to ethylene gas or refrigerating it to mimic cooler climates, making them more appealing to markets where consumers expect oranges to be, well, orange. The green to orange transformation also has cultural and linguistic implications. The English word orange comes from the Old French term orange, which itself was derived from the Sanskrit word naranga through Persian and Arabic. This linguistic journey reflects the fruit's movement along ancient trade routes, but the association of the word with the colour only became solidified in Europe, where oranges ripened to a vivid orange hue. Understanding the history of green oranges provides insight into the evolution of agriculture, trade and human preferences. It also underscores the importance of climate and environment in shaping the characteristics of crops. While most of us are accustomed to bright orange fruits, green oranges serve as a reminder of the rich variety within nature and the adaptability of plants to their surroundings.
After Albert Einstein's death on April 18, 1955, his brain was removed without permission, setting off a decades-long saga of controversy and scientific inquiry. Einstein, one of history's most renowned physicists, had revolutionized our understanding of the universe with his theories of relativity. His intellect fascinated scientists and the public alike, and this fascination extended beyond his life, leading to the illicit preservation and study of his brain. Einstein died of an abdominal aortic aneurysm in Princeton, New Jersey at the age of 76. During his autopsy, conducted by pathologist Dr. Thomas Harvey at Princeton Hospital, Harvey removed Einstein's brain without the permission of his family. Harvey reportedly justified this act by claiming it was for scientific research, believing that studying the brain of such a brilliant mind could unlock the secrets of genius. Einstein had explicitly stated in his will that he wanted to be cremated and his remains scattered, and he made no mention of donating his brain to science. Despite this, Harvey took the brain, along with Einstein's eyes, which were given to Einstein's ophthalmologist. Harvey preserved Einstein's brain in formalin and divided it into 240 blocks. He also made over 1,000 microscopic slides of brain tissue for analysis. He kept these samples for decades, distributing them to researchers worldwide for study. Over the years, various scientists examined the brain, hoping to uncover physical correlates of Einstein's exceptional intellect. Some studies claim to find differences in Einstein's brain structure. For example, in 1985, a study suggested that Einstein had an unusually high number of glial cells, which support and nourish neurons in certain parts of his brain. In 1999, researchers reported that his parietal lobes, associated with spatial reasoning and mathematical ability, were unusually large and lacked a typical groove, potentially enhancing connectivity. These findings were widely publicized but remain controversial. Critics argue that the studies were poorly controlled and relied on limited anecdotal comparisons. Moreover, the ethics of studying Einstein's brain, removed and preserved without his consent, cast a shadow over the entire endeavor. The unauthorized removal of Einstein's brain had significant consequences for Dr. Harvey. After Einstein's family learned about the incident, his son Hans Albert Einstein was initially furious, but eventually granted Harvey permission to keep the brain, provided it was used only for scientific research. However, Harvey's career suffered. He lost his job at Princeton Hospital and spent the rest of his life moving from place to place, taking Einstein's brain with him. Harvey eventually returned the remaining pieces of the brain to Princeton Hospital in 1998. Today, some of these samples are stored at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, where they are occasionally displayed. The story of Einstein's brain raises profound ethical questions about consent, privacy, and the treatment of human remains. While the studies conducted on his brain have yielded intriguing insights, they have not provided definitive answers about the biological basis of genius. Einstein's legacy as a physicist and humanitarian far overshadows the controversy surrounding his brain, but the episode serves as a cautionary tale about the boundaries of scientific curiosity and respect for individual autonomy.
In the summer of 1518, the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, now in modern-day France, was gripped by a bizarre and inexplicable event known as the Dancing Plague. Over the course of several weeks, dozens of people were afflicted with an uncontrollable compulsion to dance, sometimes to the point of exhaustion or death. This phenomenon remains one of the most mysterious mass hysteria events in history. The Dancing Plague began in July 1518 when a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and began to dance fervently. She appeared unable to stop, continuing for hours and then days. Within a week, her strange behavior had attracted dozens of others who joined her in a similarly uncontrollable dance. Reports suggest that as many as 400 people eventually became part of the epidemic. The dancers were not performing joyful or celebratory movements. They seemed to be in a trance-like state, moving erratically and sometimes crying or screaming. Many of them collapsed from exhaustion, and some reportedly died from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer fatigue. The cause of the dancing plague has baffled historians and scientists for centuries. Several theories have been proposed, including 1. Mass hysteria. The most widely accepted explanation is that the dancing plague was a case of mass psychogenic illness triggered by stress and fear. Strasbourg in 1518 was a time of hardship, marked by famine, disease, and economic instability. These pressures may have caused a collective psychological breakdown, manifesting as a hysterical dancing frenzy. 2. Ergot poisoning. Another theory posits that the afflicted individuals consume bread contaminated with ergot, a fungus that grows on damp rye and can produce hallucinations, convulsions, and other symptoms similar to those seen during the dancing plague. Ergot poisoning has been linked to other historical events, but it does not fully explain the prolonged and coordinated nature of the dancing. 3. Religious or superstitious beliefs. Some historians suggest that the event may have been linked to local religious beliefs. Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers, was believed to have the power to curse people with uncontrollable dancing. Fear of divine punishment could have played a role in the outbreak. 4. Social contagion. In tightly knit communities, behaviors can spread rapidly through imitation and suggestion. In a time of heightened stress and fear, witnessing others dance uncontrollably may have triggered similar responses in susceptible individuals. The local authorities initially believed that the afflicted could dance off their condition. They even hired musicians and built stages to facilitate the dancing, hoping it would bring about a cure. This strategy backfired as it seemed to exacerbate the problem, drawing more people into the frenzy. Eventually they turned to religious intervention, organizing prayers and processions to St. Vitus, and the epidemic subsided by September 1518. The dancing plague of 1518 is one of the most documented cases of a phenomenon known as dance mania, which was reported sporadically in Europe from the 14th to the 17th centuries. It remains an enduring mystery and a fascinating example of how psychological, social, and cultural factors can intersect to produce extraordinary collective behavior. The event also serves as a reminder of the power of societal stress and the human mind's capacity to manifest distress in physical and communal ways. While no definitive explanation exists, the dancing plague continues to capture the imagination of historians, psychologists, and artists alike.
The claim that Pope Gregory IV declared a war on cats in the 13th century is a popular anecdote, but it is not entirely accurate when viewed in historical context. The story stems from a papal decree or belief associated with Pope Gregory IV that linked cats, particularly black cats, with heresy and devil worship. This belief contributed to broader medieval superstitions, associating animals with witchcraft and the occult. In 1233, Pope Gregory VI, not Gregory IV, issued the Vox in Rama, a papal bull addressing the spread of heresy, specifically concerning a cult alleged to practice satanic rituals. The bull described ceremonies where a black cat was reportedly involved as a demonic symbol, further fueling anti-cat sentiment in the Christian world. The bull was part of broader measures to combat heretical movements in Europe, particularly in Germany. While Pope Gregory IX's text does not call for the extermination of cats explicitly, its content contributed to widespread suspicion of cats as accomplices in witchcraft. Over time, these ideas contributed to the persecution and killing of cats, especially black ones, across Europe. Cats were believed to be familiars of witches or even embodiments of the devil, leading to their association with evil. This superstitious fear culminated in mass culling of cats in various regions during the Middle Ages. Some historians suggest that the mass killing of cats may have had unintended consequences, such as enabling a rise in rodent populations, which could have exacerbated the spread of the Black Death in the 14th century. However, this connection remains speculative, as the plague's primary transmission vectors were fleas on rats, and the dynamics of disease transmission are complex. While Pope Gregory IX's Vox in Rama had significant cultural impacts, it is important to approach the story critically and recognize that the war on cats narrative has been exaggerated and simplified over time. It reflects a mixture of historical events, medieval superstitions, and later interpretations, rather than a straightforward declaration of a campaign against cats by the Church.
The Great Emu War of 1932 was a bizarre and often humorously recounted event in Australian history, in which the Australian military attempted to curb the population of emus, large, flightless birds native to the continent. This war occurred in the state of Western Australia and ended with the emus emerging as the clear victors, much to the embarrassment of the military forces involved. The conflict arose during a challenging period of Australian history, the Great Depression. Many unemployed veterans from World War I had been granted land in Western Australia for farming. However, these farmers faced significant hardships, including drought, low crop prices, and most notably, an invasion of emus. Around 20,000 emus migrated from inland regions to the agricultural areas, damaging crops and causing financial ruin for many farmers. In response to the farmers' pleas for assistance, the Australian government decided to intervene. Major GPW Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was dispatched with a small military force, equipped with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition to address the emu problem. The campaign began in November 1932, but the emus quickly proved to be formidable opponents. The birds demonstrated remarkable speed, agility, and group cohesion, making them difficult targets. They traveled in large flocks, but often scattered in unpredictable directions when approached. The military faced numerous logistical challenges, including difficulties in maneuvering the heavy machine guns and hitting the fast-moving emus. One of the most infamous moments occurred when the soldiers attempted to ambush a group of emus near a dam. Despite firing on the birds, only a few were killed, and the rest scattered into the surrounding countryside. On another occasion, the military mounted a gun on a truck to chase the emus, but the rough terrain rendered the operation ineffective. After several weeks of effort, the operation was deemed a failure. Major Meredith's team had killed approximately 1,000 emus, far fewer than expected, and had expended a significant amount of ammunition. The emus, on the other hand, continued to roam the farmland largely unscathed, earning the unofficial victory in what became known as the Great Emu War. The Great Emu War highlighted the futility of using military tactics against nature and became a symbol of human ineptitude in the face of wildlife. The Australian government abandoned military interventions and later encouraged farmers to manage the emu population with fencing and other measures. Additionally, a bounty system was introduced, which proved more effective in controlling the birds. The event has since become a humorous anecdote and is often cited as an example of nature triumphing over human attempts at control. It remains a quirky and endearing chapter in Australian history, capturing the imagination of people worldwide.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa is one of the most famous architectural landmarks in the world, renowned for its unintended tilt. Construction of this iconic structure spanned 344 years, beginning in 1173 and concluding in 1319 for the main structure, with final completion, including the bell chamber in 1372. Its long construction period is a testament to the challenges posed by its unstable foundation and the technological limitations of the time. The tower was designed as a freestanding bell tower, or campanile, for the adjacent Pisa Cathedral, part of the city's Campo dei Miracoli, or Field of Miracles. The project began in 1173 under architect Bernardo Pisano, though his involvement remains debated. The first phase of construction lasted until 1178, when workers had completed the first 3 stories. During this early phase, the foundation began to sink due to the unstable subsoil composed of clay, sand and silt. This caused the tower to tilt noticeably to the south. Construction was halted not only due to the tilt, but also because of ongoing wars between Pisa and neighbouring city-states such as Florence and Genoa. This pause lasted nearly a century and ironically helped the tower survive, as the soil had time to settle. When construction resumed in 1272 under architect Giovanni di Simone, efforts were made to correct the tilt. Builders attempted to compensate by constructing the upper stories with one side taller than the other. This gave the tower its characteristic curved appearance as successive levels were adjusted to counteract the lean. However, the tilt continued to worsen as construction progressed. The main structure was completed in 1319, but the final addition, the bell chamber, was only added in 1372 by architect Tommaso di Andrea Pisano. The total time from the start to finish, considering interruptions, amounted to 344 years. The tilt of the Leaning Tower of Pisa became its defining characteristic and a source of fascination. Over the centuries, the lean gradually worsened, reaching a dangerous angle of 5.5 degrees by the 20th century. Efforts to stabilize the structure began in earnest in the late 20th century. Engineers employed innovative techniques, including soil extraction and counterweights, to reduce the tilt to a safer angle of about 4 degrees by 2001. The tower reopened to the public in 2001 after a decade-long stabilization project. The Leaning Tower of Pisa stands as a symbol of architectural ambition and resilience. Its unintended tilt has made it a global icon, drawing millions of tourists annually. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated for its historical and architectural significance alongside the cathedral and baptistry in the Field of Miracles. The tower's prolonged construction period and its subsequent lean serve as reminders of the complexities of medieval engineering and the unpredictable challenges of working with natural landscapes. Far from being a failure, the Leaning Tower of Pisa has become a triumph of preservation and a beloved emblem of human ingenuity.
The idea that people in the Victorian era sent letters using hollowed-out potatoes is a curious anecdote that captures the imagination, but it is more of a whimsical myth than a well-documented historical practice. While the Victorian era, from 1837 to 1901, was indeed a time of significant postal innovation, including the introduction of the penny post in 1840, the practice of sending unconventional items through the mail was generally rare and often limited by practicality and postal regulations. The Victorian period revolutionized mail delivery with advancements like affordable postage, the standardization of mailboxes, and the introduction of postmarks. The penny post allowed people to send letters anywhere within Britain for a penny, leading to a massive increase in correspondence. This era also saw the rise of the postcard, which became a popular and inexpensive way to send short messages. The idea of sending hollowed-out potatoes as a means of delivering letters seems to be more of a playful anecdote than a widespread historical practice. While it's not entirely implausible that someone might have attempted such a thing as a prank or novelty, there is no substantial evidence to suggest it was common or practical during the Victorian era. Sending a hollowed-out potato as a letter would have faced several obstacles. Potatoes are perishable and bulky, making them impractical for reliable delivery. Additionally, postal regulations of the time required items to be securely packaged and clearly addressed. While Victorian postmasters might have handled a variety of unusual items, it is unlikely they would have tolerated hollowed-out vegetables on a regular basis. The myth of potato mail fits within a broader fascination with quirky Victorian customs, many of which have been exaggerated or invented over time. The era's sense of humour, combined with the popularity of novelty items and elaborate practical jokes, may have contributed to the persistence of this story. While the story of Victorians sending letters in hollowed-out potatoes is entertaining, it is more likely a myth than a reflection of historical postal practices. The Victorian era was indeed a time of postal creativity, but its innovations were more focused on efficiency and accessibility than on vegetable-based correspondence.
Thank you for watching. We hope these mind-blowing facts left you amazed and inspired. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell because there's plenty more where that came from. Stay curious and we'll see you in the next one.